Growing up in a small town, I was always the focus of my father's dreams. He often told me I was destined for more, that the world was mine if I just reached out for it. I believed him completely and built my life around that promise. Back then, Ralph Jenkins was the boy who shared those dreams and followed me with unwavering loyalty. From grade school onward, we were inseparable, with Ralph making sacrifices I never asked for but came to expect. As teenagers, my ambition began to outgrow my loyalty. While Ralph's love remained simple and steady, I was constantly chasing the bigger life my father envisioned. The world beyond our small town called to me. I pushed Ralph to keep up, and he tried. He even joined the football team to prove he was worthy. But as I grew older, so did my hunger for more, a life full of sophistication and success beyond what a small-town carpenter could offer. Eventually, I came to a realization: men were often the source of my problems. Sitting at a bus stop, surrounded by the lingering scent left by the homeless, I reflect on my past, recognizing my mistakes as if staring into a mirror. Life is far from what I had imagined. It's become a mess that forced me to rethink everything. Yet being young, I still have time to change. My biggest mistake was expecting men to do what benefited me. None of them ever did. And I realized my definition of right was always self-serving. I also erred in thinking other women would stick to my unspoken rules. The other woman in my story stepped in before I was ready to let go. Now, I'm on an uncomfortable bus ride back to my parents' house, trying to piece together my life in the town I once couldn't wait to leave. I know the gossip will start as soon as I arrive. This return isn't what I envisioned, but not everything is my fault. Circumstances played a role. People have expectations, and when they're unmet, my decisions reflect that. Since I was little, I heard the same words from men. "Katie, you're so beautiful. I'd do anything for you." Katie, that's me. I stand out in a world full of pears. Being an apple means my chest is bigger than my hips. Look around and you'll see there are many pears, but not enough apples. My long, straight blonde hair and blue eyes didn't hurt either. My dad always said I was destined for great things. Back then, there was only Ralph Jenkins, the cutest boy in town. I latched onto him in first grade and never let go. He wasn't as driven as me, but he always stepped up. In high school, when I became a cheerleader, I made him join the football team. He didn't enjoy it, but I motivated him by saying I'd be waiting by the goal, and whoever stopped him could ask me out. That spurred him on because Ralph didn't like to share. By senior year, he set school records for touchdowns. He could have gotten a football scholarship, but that wasn't part of my plan. After graduation, we married and moved to California. Ralph was a skilled carpenter, picking up enough part-time work to help put me through college. I earned an associate's degree in business and started working at a bank, where I noticed that some employees spent more on lunch in a week than we paid for rent. They wore expensive clothes and drove luxury cars, not pickup trucks. It was the life I wanted. I worked on changing my image and shedding my southern accent. I asked Ralph to drop me off and pick me up a block from the bank so no one would see me in his old truck. Ralph was a good guy, and I loved him in my way, but I didn't want anyone to see me in that truck. One bank employee took an interest in me and helped me fit into the life I desired. In return, I helped him with a personal issue that wasn't a big deal to me. I barely felt anything when we were together, so I didn't see it as cheating, but I knew Ralph wouldn't feel the same. I made sure he never found out. This bank employee introduced me to the right people, eventually leading me to Smith Benson. Now that was class. A man with 2 last names. Even his first name sounded like a surname. I liked Smith right away. He was an account manager at an entertainment firm that worked with stars and athletes. I didn't care who they represented as long as it wasn't in farming. Smith's silver BMW was the nicest car I had ever seen. He hired me as his assistant so I didn't have to stay at my bank teller job. From the start, I knew Smith was interested in me, and it didn't take long for him to prove it. Despite his wealth and influence, I realized I had power over him. For the first few weeks, I kept things professional but knew waiting too long could cost me my chance. I expected something in return. Smith took me to trendy lunch spots, did my hair, and even bought me clothes. I told Raph that Smith just wanted me to fit in at work. Raph, jealous, threatened to confront Smith if he touched me. I think he followed us a few times, so I had to be careful. He still hated the thought of me being with someone else. One day, a French artist and client of Smith's came to town for a month to work on her pieces. I saw an opportunity. "Where will Amanda stay when she gets here?" I asked Smith. "In a rented studio apartment," he replied. "Any carpentry needed?" I said. "Some. Why?" "If my husband does the work, we'll know where he is, so we can meet without him catching us," I said. Smith called Raph, set up a meeting, and gave him the job details. They shook hands, and Raph left. Then Smith told me I owed him for hiring Raph. I knew what he wanted, and everything had to be precise. Smith booked a motel far from Raph's work, but Raph happened to drive by since it was near the only Burger Queen in town. He saw Smith's BMW and waited outside. Smith and I thought we'd gotten away, but Raph had already seen us. Smith was pleased. I was disappointed, but also relieved. By then, I had already cheated on Raph twice with other men who never realized they didn't fulfill me. Sex with Smith was as dull as with Mr. Jones from the bank, but at least I could have both.
I can't believe I saw Katie leaving the motel with her shady boss. She's probably moved on, mingling with city people and feeling too sophisticated for a country guy like me. If that's what she wants, so be it. I won't stand in her way. I called a friend who advised speaking to a lawyer about divorce. It would be costly, so I'd need to keep working. It reminded me of the old Dukes of Hazzard joke. Divorces are expensive because they're worth it. The lawyer suggested hiring a private investigator to gather evidence. He said that since we had no kids and both had jobs, proving infidelity would mean no alimony. That became my goal, to be free of her. Though I still loved Katie, I couldn't understand why she did this. Deep down, I knew why. Since first grade, we'd both been devoted to her, doing whatever she wanted. Now, she wanted someone else. I drove to the apartment I was working on, hoping for a microwave for my Burger Queen meal. The job was straightforward, but time-consuming. Setting up easels and stands in various rooms and the backyard for the resident artist. I also checked for needed repairs, fixing what I could and noting bigger issues for Smith. The front door squeaked and stuck when I opened it, so I added $50 for WD-40 to the bill. In the kitchen, I found a nice microwave. As my burgers heated, I thought about Katie again. Staying married to her felt impossible. No matter what, I couldn't speak badly of her. I wasn't ready for this. I thought I heard a noise on the back stairs, but it might have been my imagination. I finished eating, measured the rooms, and planned the layout. After cleaning up, I headed home. Katie was there, wearing a silky nightset. I remembered when she looked just as good in one of my old shirts. But now she was too refined for that. She walked over as I pretended to put my tool belt away, reaching to hug me. "Ralph, have you eaten yet?" she asked. I wondered why she was asking. She didn't cook, and I didn't smell any food. If I was hungry, she probably wouldn't offer anything. "Yeah," I said. "I had burgers." I hoped she'd remember I only ate burgers from Burger Queen right next to the motel where she'd been earlier. "Okay then," she said. "Maybe we can spend some time together." Two things stood out immediately. Her fake city accent was gone, replaced by her old way of speaking, and she smelled freshly showered, likely to hide any trace of her encounter with Smith. Was she covering up, or did she want to convince me nothing happened? I may not be as polished as she and Smith, but I'm not naive. I could have gone to college. I had the grades and scholarships, even better than Katie's. But when we moved here, I worked so she could focus on her studies. She leaned on the bedroom doorframe, waiting. I should have followed her, but I stayed at the kitchen table, spreading out my notes. "Honey, I need to double-check my measurements for this job," I said. "If I make a mistake, it'll reflect badly on you with your boss. We wouldn't want that, right?" "I'll come by soon," I added. She frowned, but walked to the bedroom. She wasn't used to not getting her way, but soon she'd have the freedom she wanted because I'd be gone. It hurt, but I knew it was the right call. My dad always said that the hardest decision is usually the right one.
I couldn't believe Ralph was making me wait for intimacy. He should have come to me as soon as he walked in. When he first saw me, it felt like he was saying goodbye. He wasn't himself, and now he was making me wait. Smith, or any other man, would have been eager, but Ralph made me wait. I lay on the bed, hoping he'd notice my new sky blue set that highlighted my eyes and barely contained me, ready to be undone with a pull. The matching underwear were flattering, and Smith had once praised them. It was over in about 10 minutes. I thought he was just pausing, but he was done and drifting to sleep. He even asked if I wanted more, and when I sarcastically replied, "Oh yeah, I can hardly wait," he didn't catch on. I wanted Ralph to come back to me. I drifted off, imagining it, and when I woke up at 3 a.m., he was beside me, but he wasn't holding me like he usually did. Even after arguments, we always slept close. This time, he was turned away on the other side of the bed. I tried to get his attention, and when he stirred, he asked, "What do you want?" "Nothing, Ralph. Just go back to sleep," I said, frustrated. I thought I saw a small smile before he turned away. It should have been a clue that something was wrong, but I missed it. The next morning, Ralph was already gone when I woke up. He didn't kiss me goodbye or say anything, which was strange. He always said he'd want to say I love you one last time if anything happened to us. Ralph was straightforward, not someone I expected to have a hidden plan. He'd never turned me down before. Maybe he was just tired, but why sleep so far from me? I still needed Ralph, and in my way, I loved him more than anyone. But Smith was my path to the life I wanted, and Ralph would never know. I left the house as early as I could.
I dreaded the thought of morning intimacy with Katie. It was strange how my feelings had shifted from admiration to disgust in just a day. Emotionally, I still loved her and wanted to fix things, but being close to her felt wrong. So, before sunrise, I went to Home Depot, ordered supplies, grabbed coffee, and picked up new tool blades. Once ready, I headed to the apartment. When I arrived, I thought I saw a light on the top floor, but it vanished. The place was supposed to be empty until the new tenant moved in weeks later. I unloaded my supplies in the living room, sorted them for each room, and left the deck materials aside for later. As I took a break with my coffee, my thoughts drifted to Katie and Smith, something I still couldn't comprehend. I remembered our early days in California when I worked hard so she could focus on school. I didn't regret helping her, but her betrayal stung deeply. Tears welled up, but I pushed them back. Crying wasn't something I allowed myself to do. Wiping my eyes, I thought I saw movement upstairs, but there was no one there. I grabbed my tool belt from the truck, feeling slightly better. My phone vibrated. It was Katie calling. I didn't pick up. I needed to prepare for life without her. The private investigator would soon have the answers. I began working on a shelving unit meant for canvases and frames, testing one before completing the full design to avoid wasting materials. I wanted at least one ready in case the artist showed up early. Near lunchtime, I craved Burger Queen. On my way there, I spotted Smith's car parked at the motel again. Anger surged, but I stayed calm. Remembering my lawyer's advice, I took an awl and punctured all 4 tires before scratching the car's side and driving away. I felt a bit better and ordered my usual at Burger Queen, but realized I'd need to start watching my diet. Too many burgers, and I'd never move on from Katie. As I ate, it hit me that damaging Smith's car was as insignificant as eating those burgers. A fleeting act. The realization dampened my anger. I traded my relationship for a few scratches and flat tires. Back at the apartment, I felt close to tears. It seemed like everything was wrong, and I almost believed I deserved Katie's betrayal. This job had only been a way to track my whereabouts. I knew our marriage couldn't be saved. Katie wanted more than I could give, and Smith offered it. I knew I had to let her go. I thought yesterday was bad, but today was worse. The weight of it all hit me, and I broke down, overwhelmed by deep sadness. Time blurred as I lay there, understanding what true loss felt like. Every action felt meaningless. In a dark moment, I wondered if I should even keep breathing. Maybe if I died, Katie would understand my pain or feel relief, seeing it as an escape for her and Smith. The thought crossed my mind that my death might be my final gift to her. Suddenly, a small hand touched my shoulder, startling me. I turned to see a petite woman with curly brown hair and eyes that were a striking mix of gray and green. Her gaze was deeply concerned, but without judgment. "Who are you and why are you here?" I asked, confused. "You're so sad," she said in a heavy accent. "This is my home. You're making my picture stands, yes? And better than the usual ones, I'd say." I was speechless. On the second floor, I noticed the smell of food. She smiled softly. "I wanted to come down and eat with you, but no one can know I'm here. I work day and night but have no new ideas, just pictures without vision. I watched you fall into sadness. You should talk. Maybe I can help. Come, sit and talk." She led me to the same table I'd sat at before. All those times I thought I heard something, I realized now I had. She was very small and definitely French. She was the tenant Smith had rented the apartment to, so technically she was my boss, or my boss's boss. Unlike Smith, she was kind and attentive, a stark contrast to the bastard who only cared about seducing my wife and keeping me busy so I wouldn't discover his betrayal. She opened a package, her face lighting up. "Oh, great," she said. "You got enough for 2. She set the table, ran upstairs, and came back with a bottle of wine. Suddenly, it felt like a luxurious dinner, not fast food. I wouldn't have been surprised if she had brought out candles and hired a violinist. "Amanda Anderson," she introduced herself, her accent growing on me. "It doesn't sound very French," I said. "And you?" She smiled. "Ralph Jenkins," I replied, shaking her tiny hand. We sat down and ate my Burger Queen burgers, talking for the next hour. We discussed her paintings, how she liked my shelving system for displaying and working on her pieces. She asked me to keep her early arrival a secret since she wasn't due for another month. I promised I wouldn't tell anyone. As the evening went on, it was clear we were getting along. We both had our own sadnesses, unspoken for now. I realized her sadness was connected to her art. I didn't know much about painting, but I was sure she was talented. I couldn't tell a good painting from a bad one, but I could tell she had something. By the time I checked my phone, I realized I had to leave. I didn't know how the time had passed so quickly, but I felt better than I had in days. Amanda wasn't Katie, but she was beautiful and didn't think I was worthless. Maybe there was life after Katie.
When I got home, I expected Ralph to be there. I had showered at the motel, but I couldn't shake the thought. Why would I choose Smith, an older man, over Ralph, my strong, capable husband? Part of it was Smith's dominance. With Ralph, I had control, getting him to do anything by withholding affection. With Smith, it was always on his terms. Now that he had what he wanted, I was just the office mistress. An afterthought. Lately, I missed Ralph. I couldn't wait for him to come home so I could forget about Smith. When Ralph didn't answer my call, I decided to cook, something I never did. I found marinated steaks and microwaved vegetables, even following a cooking show's tips for inspiration. Proud of my effort, I flushed from the heat as I prepared everything. Ralph came home an hour later, half smiling and limping. His expression seemed off. I'd known him forever, and there was always love in his eyes. But now I saw only sadness. "Ralph, are you hungry?" "I made dinner," I said, trying to stay cheerful. "Smells good," he said. "I fell down the stairs and hurt my back. The ER gave me pain meds and I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep," he said, heading to the bedroom. I turned off the oven and left the food on the counter, thinking we'd get to it later. We'd faced worse, and I assumed he'd want me once the pain eased. I crawled into bed, hoping for closeness, but he was turned away. When I touched him, he groaned in pain. "Ralph, what's wrong?" I asked. "Any movement hurts," he replied. "Why are you lying like that?" I asked. "I'm elevating my legs for blood flow," he said. "Do you want me on top?" I offered. "I'm too tired," he yawned. The painkillers knocked me out. I lay there, frustrated. For a moment, I thought of going out, but something felt wrong. As I drifted off, I whispered, "Good night, Ralph. I love you." For the first time, he didn't respond right away. When he finally mumbled, it sounded like, "Tell it to Smith." My mind raced. Two thoughts came to me. Either Ralph was jealous and avoiding me, or he knew. I couldn't sleep. When I tried to get close, he pulled away. When I woke up later, Ralph was gone. It was too early for work, so I found him on the couch. I went back to bed, setting my alarm for 6 a.m., but by then, he'd already left. He was avoiding me, and I didn't like it. At work, I brought Smith his morning coffee. He was absorbed in the financial pages, oblivious to my unease. I realized how selfish he was, always putting himself first. Had I been like that with Ralph? It hit me how much Ralph loved me to put up with everything. "Do we need to talk?" Smith finally said. "I think Ralph knows about us," I blurted. "Good," Smith said. "This will speed things up." "Speed what up?" I asked, confused. "Your divorce. You can be with me now. We both love the finer things, and you've outgrown the village carpenter. He can't offer what I can," Smith said confidently. I nodded, pretending to agree, but his words echoed in my mind. It would have pleased my father, and until yesterday, it would have pleased me too. My father always saw Ralph as beneath me, but Ralph always showed me love, sacrificing for me. Smith kept me around out of convenience. Ralph's world was me, and mine had been him. Smith's world was himself. Ralph always made me feel loved, putting my happiness first. Until recently, our intimacy was perfect. Smith, on the other hand, never fulfilled me and never called me beautiful. This morning, all he said was that we belonged together, as if it were a business arrangement.
I got out of my truck with 2 bags and walked to the dark apartment door. After fumbling with the bags and keys, I turned on the light and set everything on the table. I knocked on the upstairs door, and it opened quickly. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd open the door or still be here," I replied. "I have to trust you," she said, stepping into the kitchen. "What did you bring me?" "I didn't know what you liked for breakfast, so I brought this," I said, pointing to a bag. She smiled when she saw the double mocha latte and croissant. She glanced at my McClowney breakfast with a mix of curiosity and amusement, but smiled when she caught the smell of my strong black coffee. The McClowney meal was a classic: synthetic egg, bacon, cheese, and sausage on an English muffin, a symbol of indulgence. It reminded me why America struggles with weight compared to healthier options like Burger Queen. She shook her head at the sandwich and started setting the table, moving quickly around the kitchen. She brought out utensils and cups, then returned with orange juice. I watched, captivated by her graceful movements. Seeing her clearly in the light, I realized her natural beauty. She wasn't glamorous in a Hollywood way, but uniquely captivating, with imperfections that added to her charm. Her curly hair, wide eyes, upturned nose, and expressive lips made her magnetic. Despite her petite frame, she was well-proportioned, and her figure seemed perfect. Compared to her, Katie appeared awkward. I marveled at how she made the simple meal feel special. We sat down and she divided my McClowney breakfast, sharing it between us with juice and strong coffee. "I hate this sweet fake coffee," she said, wrinkling her nose. "It's terrible." "Why drink it?" I asked. "I don't," she said. "People think this is how we drink it in Europe, but I need strong black coffee when I work," she said, taking a bite of bacon. She reached for more bacon, and when our hands touched, there was a spark. She smiled and took it anyway. "We're sharing," she said playfully. "Why share my bacon?" I teased. "Because, Ralph Jenkins, I already finished mine," she replied with a grin. Hearing my full name from her felt different, something Katie never made me feel. The thought of Katie dimmed my mood, and Amanda noticed. "What are you doing while I work today, Ralph Jenkins?" she asked. "I'll set up a frame on the porch so you can work without interruptions," I said. "Why not finish the shelving in the main room? We can talk while we work," she suggested. "Sounds good," I agreed, surprised. I always thought artists would be aloof like Smith, but Amanda was down to earth, making it hard to picture her as a famous artist. I grabbed my tools and started on the shelving. Amanda was already painting, blending precise and wild strokes on her canvas. She wasn't what I expected from an artist of her reputation. I hesitated to start the saw, worried about distracting her, but she nodded when I asked if it was okay. She even came over to watch me work, sharing why she arrived early. She felt stuck, her recent work uninspired, and hoped a new location would reignite her creativity. I opened up a bit about my situation, keeping it vague. She listened without judgment, which felt good after only talking to my lawyer and investigator. At noon, we went to a riverside cafe for lunch. The food was great, and I found myself not wanting to go back to Burger Queen. Amanda's company was refreshing, and she made me laugh, pointing out the differences between our countries. This routine continued for weeks. I spent my days helping Amanda create her perfect studio and returned home just in time for bed, leaving early each morning. When Katie and I did cross paths, it was tense. She wanted to talk, but I kept finding reasons to avoid it, always too busy or tired. 2 weeks before Amanda's exhibition, she moved into town. After checking the apartment, she told Smith she liked it but wanted changes. Smith assured her he'd handle it. I was excited to spend more time with Amanda, but my mood shattered when Smith called me to his office. I expected him to ask me to do the work Amanda needed, but didn't expect to find him with his hand up Katie's dress. Even though I had evidence of their affair, seeing it firsthand was gut-wrenching. Smith looked lustful, while Katie seemed indifferent. When Smith noticed me, he pulled his hand back quickly. "It's not what you think," Katie said. "Come on, Kat," I said. Smith smirked. "Come on, old man, don't be corny." I punched him, hearing a sickening crack as he fell over the table. I took a step toward him, but stopped. Neither was worth it. "I told you if you touched her, I'd smash your face. She's yours now," I shouted, walking out as Smith cried. "Ralph, wait, we can fix this. It means nothing," Katie called after me. I got in my truck and drove, trying to clear my mind, but couldn't. I decided to pack up and stay at a motel, but when Katie followed, I drove off. I didn't check into a hotel right away, knowing Smith could find me. I planned to move between places and called my lawyer to start the divorce process. Then I went to Amanda's apartment to work. Her smile felt like sunshine after a storm. "You're late," she said, cheerful. "Come, see what we have for breakfast." Amanda's warmth was comforting. She had set out an impressive breakfast spread: muffins, cookies, cold cuts, fruit, and more. "What's all this for?" I asked. "For us," she smiled. "Let's eat, and then you can tell me what's wrong." "No, I just want to forget," I said. "Okay," she said with a small, understanding grimace. "We'll just eat." With her exhibition only days away, Amanda was busy. She showed me sketches she wasn't sure about, some without a theme, just new work for the gallery. Her last show had made over $600,000, but with expenses, she kept about $290,000. Her dream was to earn a few million and retire. After breakfast, she asked me to finish the shelving in the smaller upstairs room she used for work. The main room would host a pre-show exhibition for gallery owners and critics. I grabbed my tool belt and headed upstairs. The first room I found was her bedroom. Unlike Katie's neat room, Amanda's was chaotic, with clothes, shoes, and papers scattered everywhere. It was messy but full of character, reflecting Amanda's spontaneous nature. It reminded me that life didn't need to be perfectly planned. Smiling, I closed the door and found her studio. My relief turned to rage when I saw some of her paintings defaced with Smith's sarcastic influence. Anger took over. I grabbed a can of paint and threw it across the room, splattering a canvas. I screamed and knocked over more cans, paint spilling everywhere. Amanda rushed in with a man who looked terrified. She took in the scene, handed me another paint can, and pointed at a painting of Smith and Katie. I poured paint over it. She passed me more cans, and I threw them until I collapsed, exhausted. Amanda sat next to me, massaging my shoulders. "This is what you're upset about, isn't it?" she said, and I nodded, unable to look at her. The man, now recovered, yelled at me. "Do you know what you've done? Each painting was worth $20,000. You'll pay for this for the rest of your life. The security system recorded you. When I sue, you may end up in prison and still have to make payments." Amanda calmly responded. "Why are you so angry? These are my paintings, not yours. There will be no trial or charges, and if you're worried about your commission, we can arrange something so you won't have to worry about getting paid for my work in the future." The man began to speak again, but Amanda interrupted. "You're just leaving?" she asked.
As my dad always said, this is where the rubber meets the road. When Ralph caught Smith's hand up my dress, I felt like my world ended. Smith had been using me more lately, but it was always just that, use. Compared to Ralph, Smith never cared for me. I was just another possession, like his car or watch. He never said he loved me or even liked me. It hit me that I truly loved Ralph more than I ever admitted. I took him for granted because he was always there, always putting me first. I remembered one morning when I had an interview and my clothes weren't ready. Ralph came home from work, made me breakfast, and ironed my clothes. Smith would never do that. I didn't even know where Smith lived. How had I been so blind? All week I tried talking to Ralph, but he wouldn't engage. We hadn't been intimate in a while, and I could see he knew about Smith and me. The look in his eyes, once loving, now held contempt. Ralph, always kind and understanding, now seemed hard and cynical, and I knew it was my fault. I had ruined what we had. I remembered Smith's face after Ralph punched him, swollen and in tears. I tried to talk to Ralph, but he walked out. Smith, lying there, whimpered, "Did Ralph really say, 'She's all yours'?" I took him to the doctor, who didn't believe his made-up story about walking into a door. After an injection for the pain, I drove Smith back to the office. It struck me as odd that he didn't want to go home, but I had no time to think about it. I knew Ralph would come home, so I got there first. Seeing his things still there, I felt hope. I thought about what I'd say and prayed he'd listen. I wanted his forgiveness more than anything. When I heard Ralph's truck, I rushed outside, but he backed out as soon as he saw me and drove away. I went inside and cried, feeling weak, something my father would never approve of. But I realized that in chasing success, I almost lost the person who mattered most. The wealthy people Smith introduced me to never truly accepted me. To them, I was just an employee. I didn't need them. I needed Ralph. After hours of crying, I decided to fight for Ralph. My phone rang and I straightened up, trying to sound composed. "Hello?" I said. "Kathleen, where are you?" "I'm home," Smith said. "We have a problem. Something happened to Amanda." "I'll be right there," I replied, seeing this as a chance to distance myself from Smith and rethink everything. When I arrived at the office, I nearly laughed. Smith looked terrible. His swollen nose and red face made him pitiful. "What happened to Amanda?" I asked. "Her manager said someone destroyed her things. I spoke to her and she said it's fine." "Then why am I here?" I snapped. "My marriage is falling apart." "That's why," Smith said. "Threaten divorce to scare him. Make him think we'll be together. Show him strength and he'll come back, letting you control the terms." Smith's plan disgusted me. I realized he wanted to manipulate the situation, but I knew I needed to take a different path to win Ralph back. In my emotional state, his advice seemed reasonable. I didn't even notice when he said, "Fool him into thinking we'll be together." "Above all, we need to keep this a secret until the show is over," he said. "If it goes well, I'll move up and you'll be with me." "But I shouldn't hire a lawyer?" I asked quietly. "No way," he replied, almost shocked. His reaction should have raised red flags, but it didn't. "We need to keep this under wraps. And don't worry, he can't do anything. He only has what he thinks he saw. If he tries anything, I'll accuse him of attack. And you can be the witness to force him to back off on the divorce," he said confidently. "Then, after the show, when that French girl leaves, the three of us can sit down and figure things out calmly. I'm sure we can come to an agreement."
After calming down, I realized where my anger had led me. Amanda gently massaged my temples, and it felt comforting. "I'm so sorry, Amanda," I said. "Shh," she whispered. "I'll make it up to you, whatever it takes," I added. She looked into my eyes, almost as if she'd kiss me, but a knock interrupted us. A large man entered, smiling. "Victor Wang, meet Ralph Jenkins," Amanda said cheerfully. "Now I see why you were hiding," Victor said, giving me an odd look. He asked to see Amanda's work, and she led him into the living room. I followed, knowing we had more to discuss. Victor barely glanced at her paintings. "Honey, you drew these," he said dismissively. "Rich folks will buy them, but they bore me, like a rock star's greatest hits with no hits." "Do you have anything else?" he asked. "I had character studies, but they were damaged," Amanda said. "Show me, and I'll think about it," he said. "If you like them, she'll redo them," I added quietly. Victor gestured dramatically and led us to the studio. He surveyed the room, now in disarray from my outburst. He suddenly looked excited. "Amanda, recreate this room. It's full of raw emotion," he said, almost shouting. "This is it," he pointed at me. "You didn't hit her, right?" "Of course not," I said sharply. Victor suggested painting after reconciling fights and asked about bringing a camera crew. "Before the show," Amanda said. Victor left, muttering to himself. Amanda, lost in thought, walked into the studio and examined every detail. She rushed to her bedroom, speaking excitedly in French and English. She returned with a camera and kissed me. My first real kiss. Brief, but meaningful. I watched as she photographed the room and measured the space, speaking rapidly on the phone about recreating the setup and planning the exhibition. Amanda's business side was fierce. She renegotiated terms and set expectations, then turned to me, her smile a mix of triumph and sadness. "Where are we having dinner, Ralph Jenkins?" she asked, eyes softening. "Texas Roadhouse," I laughed.
Ralph didn't come home last night. I had followed Smith's advice but had my doubts. My plan was to talk to Ralph, using Smith's idea only if necessary. What Smith didn't get was that Ralph had luck and unpredictability on his side. Even when things looked bad, Ralph always found a way. But now we were on opposite sides and luck couldn't help me. I waited for Ralph, spreading a blanket by the door to catch him if he returned. By 3 a.m., it was clear he wasn't coming. I felt the weight of my actions and cried, not wanting to be strong anymore. I just wanted my husband back. When I arrived at the office late, it was chaotic. I felt out of place, only there to satisfy Smith. I thought of what my parents would say, picturing my mom's voice reminding me how I'd succeeded in some ways, but failed in the most important one, my marriage. Before I could cry again, a secretary came out of Smith's office, warning someone about a family argument inside. Smith emerged with a smaller, disheveled man who, despite his appearance, had a commanding presence. "Who was that?" I asked Smith. "No time for questions," he snapped. "Amanda wants to renegotiate her terms, hinting at going to another agency. Brandon smells money and is never wrong. If I lose this, we're both out." "What will you do?" I asked. "What do we do?" he barked. "Stop worrying about your husband and focus." His tone was harsh, and for the first time I saw how little he respected me. In contrast, Ralph, who I had hurt, never spoke to me like that. "Maybe Amanda called while we were at the doctor's," I suggested. Smith's eyes lit up. "That's possible. I'll go to her like this. She'll sympathize," he said. He motioned for me to come closer and pointed at his zipper. "Smith, we just got caught," I protested. "Lock the door and come here," he insisted. His look silenced me, but a knock interrupted us. A woman entered with papers. "She's working on something new with a partner," she said, excited. "Critics loved the photos, and they're adding a private room with an extra fee going to charity. Miss Jenkins might help," she added. "How can she help?" Smith sneered. The woman turned to leave. "Your husband is overseeing the new room construction," she said. "He's probably making sure Amanda's vision is perfect." With a smile at me, she walked out. It seemed like everyone but me recognized how special Ralph was. "He's so sweet," Smith mocked after the woman left. "If he's so great, why did he do this to me? Now, go find out whatever you can from Lil Abner," Smith ordered. "I'll work on getting back into her good graces. If there's money to be made and we can manage this, we'll come out ahead," he said angrily. I went to an art gallery on the east side of town, where an exhibition was set to open in 3 days. The place was busy, with cars everywhere and people rushing around. At the entrance, I was stopped by a large security guard in a tight suit. "The venue is closed to the public," he said. "I'm from the agency that represents Miss Anderson, and I need information," I said, showing my badge. "Miss Anderson isn't here," he replied. "Can I see Ralph Jenkins?" I asked. "Mr. Jenkins is busy," he said. "Tell him it's his wife," I insisted, showing my badge again. He handed my badge to another guard, spoke briefly, and left. The second guard stood there, watching me like he was ready to block me. As I waited, I reflected on the irony. I had pushed Ralph away, betraying his love, and now I was here begging to see him. A few minutes later, the first guard returned, handed back my badge, and wished me a good day. When I tried to enter, he stopped me. "Mr. Jenkins doesn't want to be disturbed," he said firmly. Just then, a teenager arrived with bags from Burger Queen and went inside. Ralph was having lunch, but I was turned away again. "Have a nice day, ma'am," the guard said, teeth clenched. As I walked away, a loud Shelby GT 500 Mustang pulled up, and Amanda stepped out wearing mismatched casual clothes but looking radiant. Only Amanda could pull that off. "Cool car, Amanda," said the guard. "It's a gift from my new partner." She smiled and went inside, ignoring my wave. This confirmed Smith's suspicions. He was excluded, and so was I. Back at the office, Smith looked tense when I walked in. "What did Red-Faced Joe say?" he asked. I flinched at his mention of Ralph. "I couldn't reach him," I said quietly. "What?" Smith yelled. We pay him, and you're his wife. No wonder you're so drawn to me. What did Amanda say? I asked. Her assistant said she was busy, Smith snapped. Did you try calling her? I asked. The assistant answered all calls and said she was out, even when I tried her personal cell, Smith said. So, did you call her? I pressed. I don't have that number, he said mockingly. Only people involved in the show have it, like Brandon. Her head of security, her assistant, her new partner, and your husband all have it. That leads to my idea, I said. An idea? Smith scoffed. Did he think I was that clueless? Yes, I said firmly. All artists have agents and managers, right? Of course, Smith replied. Who's introducing her new partner? I asked. I don't know, he said, thinking. He reached across the table, trying to unbutton my blouse. I pulled away just as the door opened and Brandon walked in. Smith turned pale. I don't think we've met, Brandon said, extending his hand. Brandon Benson, this is my assistant, Kathleen Jenkins, Smith introduced. Jenkins? Any relation to Ralph Jenkins? Brandon asked. He's my husband, I said. Brandon looked at me more intently and simply said, Interesting. It seemed he either recognized me or knew something I didn't. Would you excuse us, Miss Jenkins? Brandon said. If you need a dress for tomorrow's show, it might be a good idea to take a half day to handle that. I didn't know I was attending, I replied. Oh, you should be there, he said. I have a feeling you will be one way or another, so why not look your best? As I closed the door, Brandon's tone shifted, and he started yelling at Smith again. Maybe they were related, with Smith being the black sheep of the family. His idea was right. I needed to look my best for the show, especially if Ralph might be there. I doubted he would be, as he was just the head contractor. But if he was working there and saw me looking my best, he might remember he still loved me, and I could show him I had changed and wanted things to be better.
Amanda, I don't want a suit, I said. But this is the one you need, she insisted. Over the past few days, I learned Amanda always got what she wanted. This morning, she took me to a fancy salon for a haircut, not my usual barbershop. They served cappuccino and the works, and I had to admit, I looked much better, clean-shaven and neat. Amanda had hidden my car, saying I could pick her up after the show, which convinced me to go. Now I was driving an incredible midnight blue Shelby GT 500 convertible. I didn't even miss my truck while behind the wheel. Amanda's presence distracted me from my problems with Katie. Her lawyers coordinated with mine to ensure the divorce process went smoothly. With her creative nature, Amanda helped me find a way to get back at Smith without violence or risk of prison. It was a more satisfying long-term revenge, taking what mattered most to him, just as he had destroyed my marriage. But Amanda, George says he never wears suits, even when meeting the president, I said. When your band sells $50 million in records, you can skip the suit too, she said, smiling. For now, this is your first show as an artist, and you need to make an impression. The blue suit complements your eyes perfectly. I'm an artist, I asked. Since when? Since you shook up the art world by finishing my paintings, she said. Why else do you think we're doing this? I thought I was your driver to pay for the ruined paintings, I said. And that's why you made me drive your car. Ralph Jenkins, you're amazing, she laughed. What's so funny? I asked. It's not my car, it's yours. My car? I said. I can't afford this. Your share from our first painting will more than cover it, she said. If not, consider it my gift. Now try on the jacket. No ties, Amanda. I won't wear a tie.
The night before the show felt foreboding. I finally understood what my high school teacher meant by the sword of Damocles. My last-minute green dress was perfect, matching my blonde hair, with a deep front and an open back down to my waist, so wearing a bra was impossible. Ralph used to say I had an open style, and I hoped he would be there to notice. Even if he couldn't forgive me right away, I was ready to do whatever it took to win him back. If he wanted, I'd quit my job, go home, and start the family he dreamed of. From tonight on, he would be my top priority. While buying the dress, I noticed that I'd put on weight, maybe due to age, a sedentary lifestyle, or rich food. I needed to let the dress out and added elastic to tighten my midsection. My figure wasn't what it used to be, but I looked good tonight. Smith arrived in a limo, giving me the aloof look I once found attractive. Now, seeing him up close, I wondered what I ever saw in him. He was 50, balding, weaker than me, and boring. He didn't care about me, he just used me. And for him, I gave up my young husband, who adored me. When Smith closed the limo partition and reached for me, I pulled away. His time was up, though he didn't know it. He sulked the rest of the ride, clearly on edge. Skipping pre-show Zex was the least of his worries. When we arrived, we faced our first issue, no VIP passes. Our limo couldn't stop at the entrance, so we had to walk 4 blocks and enter through the side door. From our spot, I could see the VIP entrance and recognized some celebrities. I thought I saw George Solomon, lead singer of Rising Rocks, with a Swedish supermodel. Suddenly, there was a commotion as a dark blue Mustang pulled up. The valet opened the doors, and Amanda stepped out, removing her blue silk scarf. Her hair shone in the light, and her makeup was flawless but subtle. Her raw silk dress matched her eyeshadow and car, accentuating her figure perfectly. The dress covered her from the neck to above the ankles, with a small chest window and a daring back slit. It was clearly her night, and everyone knew it. Then I saw Amanda's escort, her mysterious new partner, and alarm bells rang. He stepped out and held Amanda's hand as if it was the most valuable thing in the world, their gazes locked with complete devotion. George Solomon ran over, patted the man on the back, and they playfully sparred for the cameras. These people were genuinely enjoying themselves, unlike Smith. Amanda's partner was clearly more than just that, with connections to rock stars and more. His hair was styled perfectly, and he wore a long midnight blue raw silk jacket that matched Amanda's dress. When we finally entered, I couldn't stop thinking about Amanda's partner. Why was I focused on him when I should be looking for Rafe? "Smith, I'm going to check the back of the venue," I said. He just nodded, distracted. I went backstage and tried to access the VIP room but was blocked. Smith and I, as agency reps, could enter the VIP room for the exhibition, but not for the early viewing reserved for the elite. I was tired of rich people anyway. I asked a guard if any contractors were on site in case of emergencies. "Most of them are," he said, adding they could be found downstairs playing cards and laughing at their boss. I wondered why they were laughing at Rafe, but guessed it was just friendly teasing. I realized I'd failed him again, not being there for his big night, which represented his idea of success. I went downstairs, met with whistles and comments about my dress. Despite everything, it felt nice to be noticed. I wondered how Rafe would react when he saw me. "Hey, is Rafe Jenkins here?" I asked. "Not with the workers tonight," one replied. "Rafe's doing his other thing." They laughed, and as I left, I overheard, "Rafe's winning with the ladies tonight." I returned to my section, watching guests admire Amanda's paintings, most already sold before the show began. I approached Smith. "What's wrong?" he snapped. "Didn't find Barney Fife?" I stayed silent, fuming. Rafe was worth 1,000 Smiths. Just then, an announcement over the loudspeaker signaled the start of the special show. VIP ticket holders lined up, showing their passes to enter. Inside, the room was set up differently, with only 7 covered paintings. I held my breath seeing George Solomon in the exclusive front row. The cost to sit there must have been astronomical. The presenter spoke. "What separates great artists from good ones? It's their ability to convey emotion and connect with viewers," he said. Camera flashes went off, and people outside peered through half-open doors, a tactic to entice them to pay double next time. Smith sat as far from me as he could, acting unusually distant. Normally, he liked showing we were together. "Tonight," the announcer continued, "we have the honor of presenting the newest work from an artist at a turning point in her career. I present Amanda Anderson." All eyes turned as Amanda stepped on stage with flashcards in hand, exuding confidence. It felt like an award show, and her every move was photographed. She smiled, prompting another wave of camera flashes and shouts of "Amanda," as everyone tried to get her attention. "Tonight I present my latest and greatest works," Amanda said in heavily accented English. I'd heard her speak before, and her accent was never this strong. She was playing the role of the exotic French artist. "Before we begin the auction, I need to thank those who made tonight possible," she said. "From the Benson Management Agency, please welcome Brandon Benson, Smith Benson, and Kathleen Jenkins." I was stunned she mentioned me. In a daze, I walked toward the stage. Smith beamed, whispering, "The witch is recognizing us. This could be good." He went straight up the steps, while Brandon gestured for me to go ahead. Cameras flashed as we stood on stage, and I hoped Ralph and my family were watching. Big screens throughout the room broadcast the event. I noticed more people on stage than expected, each holding brown envelopes. I thought they might present awards and wave to the crowd. Amanda began speaking again. "When I arrived in California 2 months ago," she said. Smith turned pale. We thought she'd only been here a week or 2. "I was lost," Amanda continued. "My career had stalled, and I didn't know my next move. I painted works in France that sold tonight. They were good, but I needed more. Then, someone came into my life and changed everything." A chill ran through me as I thought about her partner. when I should have been thinking about Ralph. He gave me a friend, she said as the crowd reacted. He showed me joy in simple things and the magic of flavors, like Burger Queen. I snapped my head toward Amanda, and Smith gripped my hand. I felt dread. Let me introduce my new partner, and hopefully more than just in business. She smiled at the cameras. Ralph Jenkins. My mind reeled. Smith's jaw dropped, and I nearly collapsed. Brandon nudged Smith, pointing at a short, disheveled woman at the edge of the stage. Smith paled, and I could almost hear his heartbeat. Ralph walked onto the stage, looking better than ever. Clean-shaven, hair perfect, eyes lit up, focused solely on Amanda. He signaled George Solomon, who nodded back and stood next to Amanda, ignoring me completely. I tried to move away, but I was held in place. Ralph taught me to infuse raw emotion and pain into our art, Amanda said. Ralph raised his hands, and the curtain over the paintings lifted, revealing the artwork beneath. Amanda held his hand as he lowered his. Smith turned to me as I realized the growl I heard was my own. The crowd gasped at the sight, a powerful, chaotic scene that was both beautiful and shocking. There was a moment of stunned silence before everyone stood and applauded. Tears welled in Amanda's eyes, and the cameras captured it all. I stood in disbelief. This was art? Some of the paintings weren't even finished. The paintings featured me, Smith, and scenes of us together, including one with a Burger Queen employee, and another of the disheveled woman on stage. Paint splatters covered each one, some colorful, others monochromatic. Though I didn't fully understand, they gripped me each time I looked. Watch closely, Amanda said, narrating a story of betrayal about a devoted husband whose wife chooses an unworthy man. Feel the wife's pain and sadness as her love is rejected for the last time, she added with raw emotion. Amanda commanded the room effortlessly, captivating everyone. Meanwhile, anger surged through me. I felt betrayed and humiliated. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as people recognized us, casting angry glances my way. I tried to leave, but guards blocked my path. "Where are you going, Kathleen?" Amanda called from the stage. "We have gifts for you both later." Guards stood behind Smith and me to keep us from leaving. Brandon glared at Smith. "Idiot!" Brandon shouted. "You're fired," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The disheveled woman slapped Smith so hard it echoed. She tried to reach me but was blocked by the guards. The auction began with Smith's painting, which sold for nearly $200,000. A painting of the woman, Smith's wife, fetched $250,000. My portraits also sold for high prices. The only painting that stalled was of the Burger Queen boy, until Amanda offered dinner with her and Ralph and an explanation of the boy's role. Bids soared. Amanda and Ralph raised their hands, and the room quieted. "Before we close, we present our most important piece," Amanda said. Lights revealed the final painting, Ralph standing alone, covered in bold paint splashes. Camera flashes erupted, and murmurs of awe rippled through the crowd. It was clearly the highlight, showcasing Amanda's artistic growth. I felt the weight of my betrayal. I realized how deeply I had hurt Ralph and knew I had no hope of winning him back. I didn't deserve his forgiveness. Bidding for the painting started at $1 million and climbed to nearly $1.3 million. As the auction ended and people began to rise, Ralph's voice stopped them. "There's one more piece," he said. "Even Amanda doesn't know about this. Look at the screens." A video played showing Ralph discovering the paintings in a room, his pain and shock clear as he moved from one canvas to the next. It was the day he found out about Smith, judging by the look I remembered. He picked up a paint can and hurled it at the paintings, shouting and collapsing in anguish. Amanda entered, ignoring the paintings, focusing only on comforting Ralph. She handed him more paint, guiding him to channel his pain onto the canvases. The video ended with her sitting beside him, stroking his head as he emptied the last can. The video ended and Ralph spoke. "This is authentic security footage showing how these paintings were made. It's art in itself," he said. "There is only one copy and it won't be reproduced. It would complement any collection or stand alone as a unique piece." The video sold for $2 million to the buyer of Ralph's painting. Amanda returned to the podium with a group of officials in suits. "We have special gifts for some important people," she announced. A well-dressed woman approached me and handed over an envelope. "You've been served," she said. Smith was next, and the process continued. Ralph had filed for divorce due to my infidelity and sued Smith for alienation of affection, blaming him for the collapse of our marriage. He also sued Benson's agency for failing to enforce privacy policies. Smith's wife, who was actually a Benson, filed for divorce as well. Smith, who had taken her last name, was forced to revert to his original name and lost everything: his home, job, and car. Ralph had filed for divorce long before I even considered it, so I wasn't entitled to any of his earnings from the art auction. I would only get half of our shared property up until the filing, which amounted to almost nothing. I could claim half the value of his old truck, now a trivial sum to him. I tried to speak to Ralph in the following weeks, but he refused. His lawyers warned that if I contested, they would release the photos and videos they had, sending copies to everyone in my hometown, including my parents. I signed the papers. I hoped to talk to Ralph when he came to collect his things, but he never did. I saw him and Amanda often on TV and in magazines. He was living the life I had always wanted, but without me. I fell into a deep depression until my money ran out. I had no choice but to return home. When I called my father, he was cold. Ralph's lawyers hadn't needed to release anything. The art show had been broadcast worldwide, and clips were all over the internet. Though pictures of Smith and me weren't shown, everyone knew. Ralph, true to his character, told our families about our divorce beforehand to soften the blow. His parents adored Amanda more than they ever liked me, and even my parents grew fond of her. I heard Amanda was pregnant, and she and Ralph rented a boat to slowly tour Europe before their next major art sale, which would be her final one, as she found what she'd been searching for: my husband. My bus has arrived now. As I said, the hardest thing for a woman is finding a good man. The bad ones are always pretending to be something they're not. But really, can I say this was entirely my fault?